Traffic has never been this hot. Here we go! Sit back and trip. This is the Traffic Jams with Yams. Cut it.
Welcome to Play2Win, where we bring you 360 degrees of esports coaching. This show will bring you professional esports players, team executives, league owners, celebrities, anybody and everybody that are contributing to the explosive growth of that billion-dollar industry called esports. My name is Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle, and you have tuned in to Play2Win. All right, coming back from DJ Yams himself, as usual, with the great sounds. My guest today opening up is Rene Chatfield. And Ms. Chatfield does a number of things, multi-talented. And we're going to just allow her, as we open up, to tell you what she's currently into. And then we're going to talk about some sports today. You know, usually we do esports, but we're going to talk about some traditional sports today. All right, Ms. Chatfield, how are you?
I'm doing great, Charles. Thank you so much for having me today. Excited to talk to you.
All right, fantastic. Well, been waiting on this one for a while. Go ahead and tell our audience what you're into currently.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, my name is Rene Chatfield. I'm a born and raised Columbia, Maryland girl, so shout out to all my DMV peeps. But I am an Atlanta migrant. I've been here since 1997, where I attended Georgia State on a basketball scholarship. So basketball is very deeply rooted into the foundation of who I am. I also have a sports marketing company named Chat Champs that I currently am and the founder and president of. We work with different NBA clients, Kenny Smith, Ron Artest. I've also have partnerships with Gucci that I've done work with, where they have done stuff in sports and different tennis tournaments here in Atlanta. And then we also have some other non-sports related clients like Slutty Vegan, who is also essentially growing her brand and using sports as a platform to do so. So a little bit of sports marketing. I also am the co-founder of a new business that my son launched called Black Owned Now. It's essentially an online directory for Black-owned businesses. And I am also a founder and a partner in a newly launched business that is based in Chicago, and that will be making cannabis products. A little bit of everything.
As I said, multi-talented, okay? Well, you know, in talking about traditional sports, of course, with COVID, everything has changed. What are some of the changes that you see? You know, you do have a connection with the WNBA. What are some of the changes that you see that might affect that particular league?
Yeah, so I did work a couple seasons for the Atlanta Dream as their director and head of sales, as well as I managed a lot of their community engagement programming. And so that was actually my first opportunity to really work on the inside and closely with the WNBA and kind of learn the league and learn, you know, how they operate as a business. And, you know, I think that's a really great question. You know, just in general, I think all sports essentially are really struggling. However, I will say that I feel like they're finding very super creative ways to engage their fans. And you know, the NBA as well as the WNBA, I think they're really smart in kind of creating that bubble for their players and keeping the players safe so that essentially we could still have live sports. you know, as a sports marketing firm with Chat Champs, it's definitely affected us, where a lot of the business that we essentially did was around a lot of the sports, the live sports events. And now that we don't have that, it's us getting super creative into keeping our clients engaged and finding different ways for them to engage with their fans. So essentially, it was definitely a quick pivot, and I think we're still pivoting. We're still trying to figure out, you know, how to adjust. But at the same time, it's kind of cool to be a part of history. Essentially, they'll write about this in our history books, and our great grandchildren will read about, you know, how we're living through this time. So I think it's, you know, outside of all of the negativity that we hear about around the actual pandemic itself, and essentially what it's doing, I think there's a lot of positivity and a lot of amazing things that we'll see come out of this.
Yeah, definitely so. It is definitely bringing out the creativity in everyone, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One day you'll be a grandma and your grandkids will be saying, gee, grandma, you lived through the great pandemic, you know?
I really hope to have those conversations. I'm looking forward to those.
You know, besides the obvious differences in the two leagues, the NBA being a male league and the WNBA a female league, how are the two leagues different in terms of marketing it to the audience?
Well, I think one of the biggest differences are the budgets. You know, as we know, you have to necessarily make money in order to be able to market. So I think the WNBA, when I was working there, we had to take different approaches than the NBA because we don't have the visibility that the NBA has, whether that be on the actual court and the prime time slots that the men and the NBA have, to just the reach, essentially. So yeah, we definitely, the way the WNBA approaches their marketing is really through a lot of grassroots. It is really getting into the communities and engaging with the local programs and groups and organizations and fans. And so that essentially those fans can really have that touch and feel to the players and the teams. So essentially there's a lot more community engagement. That's a huge part of the marketing and strategy around the WNBA's approach, where I think the NBA, they also have that grassroots programming, but I don't know that you can get as close to the players as you can with the WNBA players when they're out in the community.
Okay. All right. Maverick Carter, one of the business partners of LeBron James, used to work at Nike. And one of the things that he said was that working at Nike was like going to a university to learn marketing. You're also ex-Nike. You know, what were your impressions when you were there? And, you know, do you kind of have the same outlook on Nike? Was it a great place to learn?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great quote. You know, as a mom of three boys, 25, 13, and 11, the going joke, and this is kind of what, you know, I was telling my peers, listen, I'm only working here so that I can learn how to negotiate a Nike deal for my kids when they go pro. So essentially that was what I was telling everybody. It was fun because I really truly believe that I'll have one out of the three of my boys go professional. And essentially I do really want to be negotiating their sneaker deal with a major brand. And so what better way to learn from the best was to go get a job for the biggest global brand in the world, and that was Nike. So really enjoyed my time there, and the people in the bunch as the, you know, Nike basketball brand director for the North Central Territory. It was an amazing opportunity.
Do a lot of branding, you do a lot of marketing. You know, people all the time talk about branding. You know, someone opens their business and day one, they're talking about branding. You know, what is good branding? And can you give us some examples of that?
Sure, I think that's a great question. And I think it's very perspective because branding is personal. And so for me, when I talk to my clients about their personal brands and essentially what brand and even marketing means to them, I think the biggest thing is that if you're comfortable with your brand, that's the most important thing. Does it make sense to you? And then essentially look to your consumer, and who you're essentially marketing to, and does it make sense to them? And does it fit with them? And I think, that's really important. And, Nike and the Apples and the Googles, they do a really good job of pivoting and very inclusive and including, and understanding their consumer, getting different insights and learning and doing focus groups and really studying their consumer and their market. And so that's how they've been so successful. But I really think just in general is really just having a clear, concise idea as to what essentially you're marketing. I think the other key takeaway is simplifying sometimes the names and spellings of just your company name. I think sometimes, when I look at different organizations that need marketing or branding help, essentially, I don't even know how to pronounce the company name. And that could be a problem, because if I'm having a problem, then that means most likely your consumer is too. So it's really the simple things, and really paying attention to your consumer and your market.
Okay. All right. Again, staying on marketing and branding, we see so many people, taking to social media as their source of marketing. Other people stick just to traditional marketing, newspapers, magazines, television, radio. Where do you see marketing going, from here on in? Because again, COVID seems to have changed everything. What does a marketing mix look like to you going forward?
When you say marketing mix, what can you elaborate a little bit on that? I'm curious what that means. I have an answer, but what do you mean by marketing mix?
What components do you think need to be in there in terms of the places that you use to market your clients or your products?
So when I think about marketing and essentially where we're headed, the wave of the future of marketing, it's obvious that the pandemic and COVID essentially has forced us to become really almost 100% virtual and digital. And so with that comes massive content creation. And so I think it's really going to be interesting to see how the homegrown content essentially becomes a part of the mass appeal and even the mass marketing and some of the more commercial marketing, because we can't go into the studios, we can't go and travel on set, right? And so now what you're starting to see are these kind of like homegrown, and when I mean homegrown, like in your house or in their basement, campaigns and productions and content, because a lot of these smaller companies don't have an option. They can't all do what Tyler Perry is doing, essentially creating a bubble and providing for everything within the bubble. So I think really it's going to be interesting to see where content goes and how, like you said, it's forcing all of us to get more creative.
When you came out of college at Georgia State and got into the quote unquote real world, what are some of the things that you know now that you wish you knew then going into business?
I think the most important thing that I realized very young was the importance of my network and the work ethic. I think a lot of times, especially younger generation, I take a lot of pride. I mentor a lot of college kids. I'm in a lot of different intern programs where essentially I can mentor and help our youth. And I take a lot of pride in that, because I was really lucky to have those mentors for myself that helped get me to where I am today. And that's my way of paying it forward. But just the importance of my network and those relationships, essentially, I still have those relationships today. And so like really just understanding the value of those relationships and taking time to nurture Some of the relationships I may not have nurtured over others. And I think if I could go back, maybe do that a little bit differently. But I think that's what growth is truly about, is just, taking what those lessons learned and really applying them and becoming better because of it.
People will look at what you do, working with athletes and, working in those areas that some people will call the dream job. So that being their perspective, Rene, convinces that what you're doing is actually hard work.
I think it's funny when people look at, those of us that work in sports are like, oh my God, that's such a cool job. And, I want to work there. And I think when you get in and you realize that not only is it hard work and you're literally on call, like it's not a 9 to 5. At the WNBA in particular, there were weeks that I would easily hit 80 to 100 hours a week. And that's almost double, if not triple, a regular work week. So, yes, we work hard, but the fun part is we play hard too. If you're a sports junkie, it doesn't feel like work. You may actually be doing work, but it shouldn't feel like it, and it doesn't feel like it. So yes, I think the sports industry folks are some of the hardest working folks in any industry, but I also know just as hard as we work, as we play even harder.
Okay. All right. Give us one or two things that you really love about your job.
Man, it's the people. I think, again, going back to relationships and, just working and helping people. I think, at the end of the day, when I'm able to create a marketing strategy for a client and coming away from, that meeting and them saying, wow, I envisioned something and this is way better than what I could have ever envisioned. Those are things really validating that you're in the right job and you're doing the right work. And so that is absolutely, and I'm serving a purpose and helping someone. That's definitely the most rewarding part in my job, which, to be honest, I don't really call my job, because it's like I would wake up and do it for free, but I'm lucky to get paid for what I do. So it's weird when I hear people say job. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is my job, but it doesn't really feel like a job sometimes, which is a really great place and a very blessed place to be.
So much is being said today about equality, about inclusion. What has been your experience as a woman working in what has kind of been deemed to be a male world, of traditional sports? What has been your experience, and can you think of any things that maybe the industry could have done better, to help you acclimate yourself into the industry?
Well, Charles, one, I don't know that we have enough time to go through all the stories I could tell you, nor that I know that I'm legally allowed to, but for the sake of our viewers, I think it's really, the one thing I was always told was, if there's not a seat at the table, make one. And essentially, me walking away from corporate, I served 18 years in corporate America and worked for some amazing brands like the NBA, the WNBA, Nike, Warner Media, or Turner Sports at the time. I was very blessed and very fortunate, and it was not easy. Being a woman of color, a lot of times, not only was I, the only female in the room, but I was the only Black person in the room. So I think, and my voice wasn't heard, nor was it taken seriously. So it was really just about just sticking it out, doing the work, and prove that, my work speaks for itself. And so, and essentially, not only did I build my own table, but I'm building my own building. And essentially, when you ask me about all the businesses, that's exactly what I'm doing. And, leaving behind a legacy for my kids and showing them that, if there's not a seat, then you build it yourself.
I would imagine, and you can tell me if it's true, you playing basketball and having to compete, as an athlete, would seem to be of great help when you get into the business world, because believe it or not, business is also about competition. So do you think your being an athlete and competing at a high level helped you in that respect?
Oh, 100%. I mean, and even now, just being in the positions that I was in corporate, hiring, different individuals for some of the departments and the teams that I was managing, you could feel a difference. You can tell a difference from those that were athletes and those were not. And, I will say that, again, the foundation of who I am is built on the fact that I was an athlete. Basketball saved my life. And, there's a couple stories out there on the web about kind of my childhood. And I come from humble beginnings, and just to understand what I've been through and know that it was basketball that essentially propelled me into the success of my career.
And moving forward and talking about a career, many times, we get these forks in the road. We have things that pop up that were unexpected. It rarely goes as planned. Okay. Kind of tell us about your journey, how you got to where you started to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, it started accepting a scholarship at Georgia State, essentially. If you want to talk career, I mean, if we even go back a little bit further, I made a decision and had a kid at 15 that literally changed my life. And at the time, I was in the middle of being one of the most competitive, highest recruited players in the state of Maryland. And so it was definitely a shock, not only to myself, but, obviously kind of my coaches who were my mentors at the time. But I made a decision that, I was going to be not only the best role model for my son, but also the best role model I could be for all teen moms in the world. And so, I was lucky to have a supportive family and supportive group who essentially pushed me. And I was lucky enough to accept a scholarship at Georgia State and have success there. And that was it for me. It was like, okay, if I could do this and beat all odds, I could do anything. And so it kind of built that defensive wall where when I was told no for a job or whatever the opportunity was, that I wasn't going to take no as the end result, and just kept pushing forward. And then after Georgia State, I actually worked under Russell Simmons. I worked for one of his head of marketing and street promotions at the time. And I learned a lot in the music industry, but I also learned that I didn't want to be in music. So I quickly decided
we have that in common.
Yeah, music, I wasn't built for the music industry. I loved every second of it, but I learned very quickly my passion was definitely in sports. And I worked a bunch of jobs around the city of Atlanta and met some super cool people, and happened to run into Ted Turner's right-hand man at a country club that I used to work at. And essentially he was able to get me a job working at CNN as a temp, and work my way up the ladder. And, here essentially I am today. But I think, the biggest thing with all of that is I just didn't accept no as an answer, and just kept on going.
All right, let me throw one out to you. Internships. How important are they?
Oh, I would still do internships now. I mean, essentially with the cannabis company that I'm launching, I would do an internship for any cannabis company just to learn. So I think, any opportunity to educate yourself, no matter what industry, no matter where you are, an internship essentially is learning a business, is learning an opportunity, it's learning how a company runs their organization. So I think they're super important. I don't think anybody can be too young or too old for an internship. And I definitely am someone that believes very strongly in those opportunities.
Black owned. Tell us about the business that you and your son, who has just graduated from Harvard, no less, okay, have started. I mean, when you have that behind your name, just the name itself says something. So you started a business with your son. Tell us about the business, what it is and what you expect to accomplish with it.
Yeah, I'm super proud of Andre. Black Owned Now is an online directory for Black-owned businesses. It's a free site. You can go on there, and if you're searching for a Black business that you would like to support, you just research it's just like a Yelp style type website. So you go on there and you can locate a business in your area. Originally, it was, the backstory of that is my son, who just graduated from Harvard about 2 years ago. He took a job that is based in Minneapolis, and he actually was living 15 minutes away from where George Floyd was killed. And so that essentially kind of propelled him into the cleanup efforts and some of the peaceful protests that was happening in the city. And as a worried mom, I quickly went into protector mode and said, okay, I don't want my kid out there, at harm's way. What can I do to get him back into his apartment safely? And essentially did some brainstorming with him, and we decided to launch a business where he could feel like he was supporting the movement without putting his life at risk. And so that's how Blacko Now was built. You can go to blackonow.com, and he's in the tech industry. So he's kind of the tech brains of the business. I'm kind of the marketing business. And we also have 5 others on our team, actually 4 others. There's 6 of us total, a couple of interns who are amazing, by the way, and a really, really great web designer who's helped build our website. So I'm super proud of that, and it's been an amazing ride so far. We just launched in June, so essentially we're June, July, August, 2 months. It feels like way longer, but only a couple months in, and we've already got some great traction and great feedback, and really appreciated by our communities.
And once again, give us where people can find that at.
Yes, that is Black-owned, OWNED now.com is the website. You can also find us at Black-owned Now on IG, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn.
What does Rene Chatfield do when she's not doing all these other things in marketing and for her business?
Probably spending time with my kids and my family. They're the most important thing to me. They're everything. I mean, there's not enough time in the day that I get to spend with them. So usually if it's my choice and I'm not working on whatever 4 businesses I'm running at the time, I'm definitely trying to spend time with them, either rooting them on at a football. My youngest son plays football and he loves it. So it's either rooting him on, or my middle son, Eric, who's competing at a very high level for a 13-year-old, which we're super excited about. So it's probably rooting him on. I used to coach full time, and I coached boys basketball. So I was one of the only females out there coaching. But unfortunately, because of all the work, that I don't have the time or the bandwidth to do that. But eventually I would like to get back and coach girls, because I don't have any daughters. So, and helping people. Most of the time, if I'm not doing that, I'm helping serving my people in some capacity.
All right, now let's tell the truth here. Are you one of those moms who covers your eyes every time your kid is getting hit out there on the football field?
Oh no, I'm the mom running down from the stand saying, "Hit it, go back there and hit him harder." And then everybody's looking over like, "Who's that crazy lady yelling, hit him harder?" That's the type of mom that I am. I am not shy. I am 6 feet tall, so you cannot miss me. And really just, I'm a proud mom. So no, I am not a shy one by any means. And usually after the games, my boys are yelling at me for being too loud. So that's the type of mom I am.
All right, okay. Hey, let me ask you the big question. Who are some of your favorite athletes and why?
Oh man, who are my favorite athletes? Well, my favorite athlete of all time was definitely Kobe Bryant. That hit me really, really, really hard this year. I still have a hard time opening my phone and looking through timelines and things like that. But I was lucky to meet Kobe in high school when he was playing at Lower Merion, because there was a Maryland and Philly tournament that we both actually were in, and got a chance to see him at a very young age and just really just admired him super young. And so definitely somebody that I've always just appreciated. I mean, I have a plethora. I mean, I follow Dennis Rodman, and, you know, I was a Charles Barkley fan, and definitely followed some of those guys. And Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Miller were some that I looked up to. Cheryl Swoops were some of the women basketball players that I looked up to at a young age. So Dawn Staley, amazing, just so many. But yeah, I mean, I'm just, anybody in basketball pretty much. But if I had to pick one, definitely Kobe I'm an all-time, will forever fan of Kobe. And you know, just may him rest in peace, and his wife and all his children hold out his legacy, which I'm excited to see. They're doing just a phenomenal job being able to do that.
And you touched on, you know, so many of the touchstones for myself as well, being a native Southern Californian, diehard, always, forever Laker fan, #1 Kobe Bryant fan, went to USC. So Cheryl Miller, Lisa Leslie, I mean, you're just hitting all the hot spots there, Rene.
Yeah, yeah, definitely some good ones. So we definitely share that in common for sure.
Definitely some great ones. You know, in closing, let me ask you this. Obviously, again, the world has changed. There's some things that are, you know, never going to be the same. So in moving forward with what you're doing, you know, several companies that you have your hands in and are working with, what do you see as being the course, first of all, that you're charting for your own companies in moving forward? You know, how do you negotiate the way that the world has changed? And then secondly, how do you see the world of sports coping? You know, we kind of see the bubble that the NBA has put their players into, and they're trying to finish, you know, their season with the playoffs. But how do you see it all panning out moving forward for sports, and again, for your companies? How are you charting your own course as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think just on the business side of things, all of my businesses are small businesses at this time. And we're watching what the big businesses are doing, what the leaders of the industries are doing. I mean, we just heard the announcement around Google essentially keeping all of their staff and their team members working from home, maybe indefinitely. I know they announced next year for sure. And so essentially that just means that as a small business, we have to really truly adapt to working virtually. And I've got to experience that firsthand with Blacko now. All of our team members, essentially all of us, are in different states and cities and time zones. So that's been new, where maybe, 5 years ago, we would have said, let's get an office and hire everybody local to Atlanta. And so it's definitely watching what some of the leaders are doing and essentially trying to figure out how you can use that as your advantage as a small business. And use them as the example. So it's really, and staying close to kind of the trends and watching what the companies are doing and how they're keeping safe. I think trying to force people to go back to schools and their buildings, where I think is a dangerous move if you don't have everything put in place. So not that I agree or disagree, but I think it's just protecting the safety of others is most important. And, as a small business owners, that's the number one thing important to us, and just being able to adapt virtually. I think when it comes to sports, that's a really tough call. I think the NBA is one of the few leagues that stepped up and did it very quickly and said, we're going to create a bubble. And it'd be interesting to see what the NFL does. And I know that MLS soccer essentially is trying to figure out the same, but it's probably doing that for some time. And it could be years until we see full packed stadiums and what that could look like. And so unfortunately, live sports will definitely forever be changed. I don't know that, we'll ever be able to operate the same way we've been. And that might not be a bad thing. I think that will push us to continue to be creative and figure out what does that full capacity engagement look like. And I guarantee you, when we do have those full stadiums back, it's going to be super engaged with digital, different, digital aspects to it, which I think is really going to be an amazing thing for live sports.
Okay. I am talking to Rene Chatfield, marketing and branding expert. You are listening to Play to Win. I am your host, Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle. And let me ask you, finally, Rene, let me throw out one quick one first. You mentioned that your staff is in different states and you're working together. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who may be either in the same situation or maybe thinking about how they can pull off something like that as well. How do you do it? What's kind of the components that you use to, coordinate and to work together as a satellite from different places?
Lots of Zoom. We definitely Zoom, Google Meet. I really like Google Meet actually too. A lot of really good tools. Slack is a communication tool that we use that keeps us really organized and kind of, honed in into team communication. So that's been an amazing tool for a lot of my small businesses. And then essentially we are looking at some other project management tools I think all businesses should implement if possible. But, and then outside of that is I managed different touch bases with all of my team members during the week so that we allocate specific time for us to meet on a one-on-one basis. And then we also meet as a full organization during the week as well, whether that's, once a week or once a month. And that has served this purpose where everybody feels super engaged and like a community. And so far, nobody's quit. So that's a good sign you're doing something right. And most of us are working for free. So that's another even really great sign that you must be doing something right when you're in the middle of an economic crisis and people are willing to work for free and haven't quit yet.
Something good. Ending this wonderful interview, and I'm sure our audience will learn so much from it. To make our esports fans happy, are you a gamer? Do you ever play video games as well?
Let me tell you, I grew up being a gamer for sure. Super Mario was definitely one of my Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know that I was into like the basketball games and stuff like my brothers were, like the 2K. Definitely not good. I've tried. I have all boys who are all three gamers. My husband's a gamer too. So I definitely tried. Batman is one of my favorite video games of all time. I would probably still play it. We had Sega. So I would definitely grew up being a gamer. I had three younger brothers as well. So I was the only girl in the house. So I had to play video games with them. But I would say currently, to be honest, I just don't have the time. I don't even really play them on my phone. So, but I if my kids love it, I love it. So, I know some of the gamers out there, they, via them, they'll talk about them. But I think it's a super cool thing. And we definitely, in the sports industry, need to continue to adapt and integrate kind of our e-game sports for sure.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Rene, for being on Play to Win. As we tell all of our wonderful guests, we definitely want to have you back again. We'll do that and kind of get the progress report on how everything's going.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me, Charles. This is fun.
All right. Thanks so much. We're going to Mr. DJ Yams once again with our intermission. DJ.
Yams G The DJ.
Twerk it, baby.
Round 3. Fight. Round 4. Fight.
Whoa! What? Oh man!
KO.
Damn! There ain't no bugs in this.
Final round. Fight.
Oh man!
Right.
That's what's up.
All right, we're back from Mr. DJ Yams again, you know, the maestro over there on the set with the sounds. And we're about to talk to special guests here on Play2Win. You are viewing and listening to Play2Win. I'm your host, Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle. And our special guest on right now, Mr. Lorenzo Rodriguez.
Thank you so much. Thank you
What's
so
up?
much. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, fantastic. Hey, you got so much going on over there, man. We hope to cover, you know, some of that this evening and, you know, find out who Lorenzo is.
Absolutely.
So many, like I say, so many things on your plate, I hardly know where to jump in at.
Hey, that's good to know. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm ready. I'm excited. I love the name, the Oracle. That's awesome. I love it.
All right. Well, hey, first of all, you know, let's start way back when. Military brat, you know, spent some time in Germany. You know, tell us about your experience there.
Yeah. So my dad was in the Air Force for 30 years. I think right now at this point in my life, I'm on my 16th or 17th move. At this point, I've lost count. It's already, once it goes past your 10 fingers, you're like, you know what, you just roll with the punches at that point. So I'm 24 years old. I just graduated from the Metropolitan State University of Denver with a sport management degree just last year. And I really emphasized in esports and traditional sports. That's really what my background is. So when I lived in Germany, I played semi-professional soccer. And then when I moved back to the States, when I turned 18, I played in college for about 3 years, both at a community college and then at Metro as well. So been bouncing around all over and really just honing my craft, both on the soccer side of things, the traditional sports side of things, and also, you know, the esports industry. So,
You know, one thing that we see that you're heavily into is the marketing of esports and kind of the business development side. You know, tell us you had your major in sports management.
yes, sir.
Okay. And you applied that to esports. You know, was that why you went into it? When you first went into it, were you looking into esports or just sports management overall?
Yeah, so I've actually been in the sport management field. I want to say I was really introduced to it since I was about 14, 15 when I was working with a family friend at Pro Soccer Academy. It's a German soccer academy that works with military communities overseas and basically just a lot of player development skills. And when I did a lot of my, you know, in small sport organizations and small sport businesses, you have to be a jack of all trades. So I was thrown into marketing, finance, social media marketing, you know, just general business development. And I was able to just be in the pocket of the owner, the CEO, Sebastian Korst. And really, he just thrusted me into all types of fields. And ever since I was 14, 15, I've always been in those fields. And when I got to school, I tore my ACL and, other injuries as well. And when that happened, I needed something to turn to without, the mental side of injuries, the physical side of injuries. I really needed an outlet to go to, and gaming was always there for me when I needed it most. So, I back in 2015, 2016, that's when I really started to get into the business side of not only traditional sports, but also esports. And a lot of my school projects, my senior thesis, I really brought the curriculum, esports to the curriculum at my program. And that was something I was really proud about. And, a lot of the times when I transferred there from my community college, a lot of times people are like, oh, what were esports? What are esports? What are esports? And when I really brought it into the classroom setting, a lot of the teachers took off with it. And that's really what built me on the more of the professional, the more mature side of me that I am, being 24 today and looking for further opportunities down the road. So.
Okay. All right. Now, one thing that I hear over and over again from those who have, been involved in competitive gaming, once they move on to other things like marketing or management or business development,
right,
they point out how much their experience as a professional gamer helped them in going in that direction. Do you find the same thing?
Yes, sir. I think not only just in as a pro gamer, but also in the professional side of the soccer side. So when I was playing semi-professional in Germany, and then when I transitioned to the collegiate side to fulfill my degree, a lot of the things that I learned on the field, off the field, I was able to translate both of those together and really, really morph them together. And, moving forward, what I really love to bring to different companies that I work with, whether it's as an employee or as a partnership, I bring that unique, diverse perspective of being a minority in the field, and then also being as a player, and then also in the business side. So I can understand the player's perspective as well as the business perspective. So that's something that I'm able to use under my advantage, both in the classroom setting, whether, doing presentations and PowerPoints and such, or if it's in the marketing, business development, I'm able to bring that different dynamic that, some companies aren't able to see initially, that I've been so fortunate and blessed to say that I'm a military brat, and those experiences of being cultured and diversified in a lot of, a slew of different things has really helped, like I say, both on the field and off the field adventures. So,
being of the youthful age that you are, one thing that you see with a lot of young people who are trying to get into business, entrepreneurship, or do
yes,
things
sir.
is, it takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of discipline, and a lot of times at a young age, people don't have that.
Right.
Do you feel that, being an Army brat, I know you've had some discipline on that side.
On the field and off the field.
There you go. Do you think that really helped you in terms of, going into business and the things that you're doing right now?
Yes, sir. So my dad really, really enforced, one of his quotes was, "Don't count time, make time count." And that was something that I was like, wow, that's something that not only I can bring that onto the field with me, but it's also, don't take anything for granted. And I was always constantly working. And, what I love about the discipline side of what the military brat, experiences that I've had in my life, it's really trying to find consistency and balance I think is something that when people talk about discipline is not something that is really brought into in the conversation. And I think having that balance, having that self-awareness is something that I think is just so crucial in today's world. And I think one of the things that also helps me in my discipline is so many times that I've failed and how many times that I've gotten back up. Even to this day, it's just 1,000 failures to one of my successes. And that's something that I love the journey. I love the grind. I'm actually more excited about the grind and the failures. That's not necessarily the failures, but, getting to that point of when I finally make it, when I reach to the point of, hey, I can look myself in the mirror and say, I left it all on the field. And then, that's something that, like you said, the military brat commitment, the discipline really, really taught me from day zero all the way till now. So,
You know, to switch up, a lot of things going on right now in society. You know, a lot of spotlight being put on diversity. You know,
right.
that's one of the things that I know that you're really into, trying to bring some diversity to
Absolutely.
esports, you know, and gaming. Tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of times when people think of gaming, they think, they don't necessarily think of Black and Hispanics, both men and women, in the field. So that was something that, you know, that was when I came in, I already knew that was the red flag that was already put on me. When people look at me, they're like, oh, you know, you don't look like a gamer. You don't fit the criteria that we think of in our head. So that was something that I took that with a chip on my shoulder, and then I used that as my advantage of, hey, look, because I don't look like the typical gamer, the typical businessman, you know, it was something that I was able to bring with me, like, hey, because I don't have those, you know, characteristics, I'm able to bring a different dynamic to your company or to our partnership that maybe you or others in your field were not able to see. So diversity for me, being of Hispanic background, is just something that is very crucial to me. I feel like when gamers or when business people have identities, I think identities bring out flair. And I think when flair is in the room, that's something that in business, your proposals are better. Your gaming as an athlete is better. I feel like, you know, you look good, you feel good type of thing. So, and I think that when you talk about identity and you know, race and all that stuff, I think it's super important. I think it should be talked about more. I think it's good to, I think LeBron James said it best, is, you know, it's good to feel, I think he said something about feel uncomfortable is something that people should seek. I think it's good to feel uncomfortable. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable is what he said. So, and that's something that, you know, has stuck with me. So.
How we move ahead.
Exactly.
You know, you had a little experience with the Denver Nuggets, you know, with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yes, sir.
You know, what did you do there, and how did that experience help you in terms of what you're trying to accomplish now?
Yeah. So one of the things that I was really trying to do was really understand not only the soccer side of business, because that, you know, that was my background. I played soccer since I was 3. And I also wanted to branch out not only in esports, and I wanted to tie everything together. So, you know, to help pay for college on top of my soccer scholarship, I said, you know, I needed a little bit of money to live in the city of Denver. It's not one of the cheapest places.
Right.
So it was something that, you know, I needed make a little bit of money on the side, really keep buffering my resume, and, you know, understanding the player development that goes in the Nuggets. So I was part of their team store. So I worked in, you know, different customer service, different sales representatives. So I dealt with a lot of the marketing teams that came into the store, and they wanted to really understand, okay, what do our customers like when it comes to apparel? And that was something that I also, you know, I was able to take notes both on the finance side, the accounting side, and, you know, and just the business to business or business to consumer type of development for my own things, of understanding consumers on the traditional sports sides, and how can I, you know, when I want to make my own apparel one day for my own organization, how does that all relate? And that was just something that I worked there for almost a year, and really understanding facility management was another big thing. Getting, you know, I did a lot of the, I guess, the grunt work as well, you know, hanging up shirts and dealing with drunk customers. But overall, I think the experience was, you know, it really helps having that Denver Nuggets or having the Avalanche name in my resume does, you know, pop out a little bit. So.
It's all good. You know, talking about marketing management, you know, all those experiences have certainly helped you in terms of marketing, but how do you approach, you know, one thing about it, you know, being as young as you are and you're talking to businesses, you know, a lot of times you run into people of older generations. You know, how do you deal with that when there's such an age disparity between the two of you, and you're trying to convince them, you know, that you have something worthwhile for them to listen to?
Right. So I've had, like I said, I've had a lot of doors closed on me, both, you know, seeking employment and also, you know, trying to build different partnerships, because when people look at my age, they're like, man, you're really young and you have all these things, but we feel like your experiences still do not match your age. So I think a lot of times age can be an obstacle that people don't really see. But I feel like, I think age is just a number. But really trying to explain esports to people who reject it consistently. I think it's a market that I don't think esports organizations need to tap into anymore. I think esports as a whole is already big enough, even though it's so young and it's still not to where it can be and where it should be. I feel like those markets, or those consumers who actively seek to reject esports as an entity in business, for me, it's the time has already passed. And I feel like there's already newer generations coming up, even not only just the age of newer generations, but I think people in the older generation as well can be considered the newer generation of accepting and trying to understand esports. And I think those are the markets that esports organizations and just gamers in general need to tap into, because when you're trying to convince, like when people actively seek, oh no, it's not a sport, I don't care what you say, at that point it's already too late. So you're already missing opportunity when you're trying to really reach for those audiences. I think the audience and the I guess the drive for esports is already here. So that's kind of my approach to all of it. So
Dealing with the business development side of it, you have some ambitions to do some things on that side of
Right.
esports now. Kind of tell us what your ambitions are moving forward.
Yeah, so in a perfect world, my goal would be to be either a CEO or a COO of a big organization, maybe even perhaps my own organization. But in my short term, I guess 10-year goal, 10 to 15, I would love to be an esports commissioner of some sort of league, whether it's the Overwatch League, the Call of Duty League, whichever leagues that come in the next 10 to 15 years. I feel like with my experiences, both as a player, as a soccer player, as a sport management degree, being in the esports as a player in the business side, I feel like I bring a unique perspective. And going back to being a minority, I feel like as a commissioner, that is something that you need to extrapolate all sorts of different things, all sorts of environments. And being a military brat, I feel like I would be the perfect candidate, given in the next 10 to 15 years with my experiences continue to evolve. That would be something that I would love to do in the business development side of things. So.
All right. Tell us about the old playing days with Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch. Tell us a little bit about when you were playing and gaming competitively.
Yeah. So when I first got into competitive gaming, both at least on the semi-professional level, this was like the Division 2, so there was just one underneath the Division 1. This is when I tore my ACL. And so I didn't really have the best setup at all. Actually, I didn't have all the fancy stuff that I have now that it took 5-6 years to get. And I was playing, on the floor. I was playing at public libraries. Anytime that I could get my hands on, trying to practice with my team or practice for my own time, I was never really at home to do that. Even with my cast and everything. Like I was saying, I was always trying to go to public libraries because I didn't have a computer at the time, and just trying. And I think that grind and that grit was something that I learned both as a soccer player and a military brat. So it was just 6 hours of practice, every day, always constantly, again, trying to find that balance, that work-life balance. And really I was able to, for the Overwatch side of things, I started my own organization called Seven Kings, and I was able to bring 2 teams, both an academy team and the main team, to Los Angeles and to Denver for 2 local organized tournaments. And that was something, I designed the apparel. I was basically the team mom, the babysitter, and just the big brother. And I was able to, try to reach out to sponsors, try to reach out to work in try to put on all sorts of hats. I did the social media, the marketing, and ultimately, like I said, it's part of my 1,000 failures, but it was something that I'm very proud of to get me to where I am today. And that's kind of, I guess, the glory days of me playing, where it was a great time. I had a great time meeting a lot of diverse set of people, both men and women, sexual orientation, all sorts, different races. It was just something that what really resonated with me was that being on these different esports teams, I was really proud that my Seven Kings roster was the most diverse of all the teams that went to the tournaments. And it was something that I was really proud of. And quite honestly, it was actually unintentional. It was just something that just so happened to be there. And really, when I was starting to see all the different interests, I was like, man, let me really expound upon that and really tap into the minority diversity and the representation that was needed, both on the player side and the business side of things.
And again, you have to be one of the youngest people out there. I mean, you're doing things that you're talking about, the 40-year-old guy who's getting all the youngsters going, hey, come on, get together, you guys. And you're as young as they are.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Sometimes younger. So.
Okay. The business of esports and gaming has grown so big now. We're talking about $1 billion industry, and there's so many facets to it. How do you, when you're talking about putting together an esports organization, how do you get a handle on all of that? There's so many different platforms, from Twitch to YouTube gaming to, all of this, and there's so many different areas that you can go into. So when you put together an esports organization, what are some of the things that you think need to go into the mix to make a successful esports organization?
I think if you look at the company 100 Thieves, they're doing exactly what I wanted to do, but on a grander scale of things. They have investors like Drake and different millions and millions of dollars to do what I wanted to do, but on a grander scale of things. I feel like content creation, apparel, and the esports side of this, so the competitive gaming side of an organization, all those three need to be met. And one of the reasons why I started my own organization was I looked at all the jerseys and the apparel that was out there. I was like, man, a lot of this stuff is really cheesy. And, that's something that I wouldn't want my worst enemy to wear, something like this. And what I really wanted to do was bring that flair into gaming. That's something that, to get it out of the stereotype that all gamers need to, dress a certain way or they need to be a certain weight or a certain skin color. And I wanted to completely break the wheel on that. And so that kind of reflected on how all my merchandise ideas and my designs that I was creating, that's what I wanted to reflect. So the content creating, so streaming, really getting into the eyes of the consumer, of showing the behind the scenes footage, understanding someone's backstory. A lot of what I do on my own YouTube channel is I did an interview with a ex-Overwatch League player named Stefano was his name. And we talked about just the path to pro journey. And I feel like for me as a player, when I was, growing up as a person, as a player, that's something that I really sought after. And back in 2014, 2015, 2016, those things weren't really something that was really available. Those resources weren't really available. So trying to understand those three aspects, for me, in a perfect world, if your organization has, you're trying to start an organization and you have, whether you have investment backing or not, those three fields, so content creation, esports, and apparel, are those three are what I feel for a company starting to try to make a difference in esports is something that is still, I think 100 Thieves is doing an amazing job, and everything that they're doing in the right. And it shows both in their product and in the different content that they're creating. And on top of that, the championships that they bring back to their organization. So that was something that I really looked up forward to. And that was something that, I tried to replicate on my own organization, of course, on the smaller scale of things. So.
Esports again, stretching out in every direction. When you're talking about streaming, so many people are breaking through in that area now, and you
Yes, sir.
yourself are a streamer. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on that side.
Yeah. So I figured, during the quarantine period, I feel like a lot of people try to jump on into the streaming side of things. I feel like content creation, whether you're coming up as a player or even just as a business person, man or woman in general, I feel like getting content out there is such an undervalued source. Whether you're streaming for one person or thousands of people, I feel like you're just building your brand in so many ways, and you're able to bring that to an employee, no matter how big your scale is. And that's something that, what I like to do with my viewers is really show the raw side of who I am. I try to be an open book as much as possible. I try to really engage with them. And I think that's something that a lot of times the bigger streamers nowadays, or even some smaller streamers, they don't really try to bring that level of interpersonal communication that I think a lot of people are missing, especially when you're in quarantine. I think having that face-to-face or having that humanistic approach to things is something that people are really yearning for, and they miss it so much because of these quarantine days. And that's something that I've tried to bring to my own channel, both on the YouTube side of things, with my fashion, with talking about different issues, whether it's misogyny in gaming, whether it's racism in gaming, or even the beautiful things about it, the diversity part of it, and the competition and commitment and discipline, all those things. I really try to just bring everything together and try to gel it. And I try to, use my own personal experiences and try to really be as relatable as possible to people. And I feel like it's showing in my channel that people resonate with that. So.
All right. Okay, we are talking with Lorenzo Rodriguez, gamer, competitive gamer, marketer, business development person, streamer, you name it, he's checked the box. So when it comes to, you kind of putting your roots down and moving forward in the industry,
Yes,
there's so many things that you can be a part of, and you have a lot of experience at different things. Somebody who's coming along, and you got a lot of people who love gaming, and they're in their teens, they're 15, 16, 17,
right.
and they never really looked beyond just gaming. They just love to play the games.
Right.
But this whole industry has developed. What can you kind of tell a person that young to get them to realize that there are opportunities out there beyond just sitting with your controller all day and playing Overwatch or Call of Duty?
Right. So yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think in my personal life, in my experiences, I was blessed enough to have parents that really pushed me, both on the field and off the field, and trying to seize all sorts of opportunities is something that, when you get your mindset right, you can have fun, you can be with your friends, but when it's time to work, it's time to work. And that was something that, both as a competitor in the esports side and the soccer side, and then as a military bred, that was something that really instilled in my head, when it's game time, it's game time. And that's when you go in and you go in. And I feel like a lot of kids who, I think they need to realize it sooner than later, because when you get to a certain age, a lot of times esports organizations will already expect you, or not just esports, just organizations in general, will already expect you to have a certain level of either experience, a degree of some sort. It goes beyond just the passion of playing. There's a lot of, you really try to diversify yourself. I feel like with me, I was always, whatever I found interest, whether it was a big interest or small interest, I always try to just taste a little bit of everything. And that was something that, I sometimes people are like, you need to focus on just one thing. But in my experiences, trying to focus on, all sorts of things equally, in the sense of, okay, I'm going to go hard in anything that I do. And I want to, try a little bit of finance. I want to try a little bit of the competitor side. I want to try a little bit of the marketing side or the business side. It's something that I've been able to create into and morph into something that I hope one day a company is able to see this and say, you know what, boom, this is exactly the missing piece of the puzzle, because he has all these experiences, both on the field, off the field, and we're ready to go. So.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Lorenzo, away from gaming and away from, the other things in the esports space. What are some of the things that you like to do?
Yeah, so I love to travel. I guess that's kind of in the name of being a military brat.
You haven't got tired of that yet?
Yeah, not yet, not yet. Sometimes, I like to just go and be on a plane and just go somewhere, wherever. I like to just, go and find a map and say, you know what, let me go here, save a little bit of money and then just do it. I love to hang out with friends. I love the fashion side of things, both in this traditional world and then also in the esports side. I love figuring out what's in the in, what's in the out. I love streaming and just, being with family. Dog, I'm a huge dog person. So just trying to, like I said earlier in the interview, is just trying to find that balance of being, I guess, that normal kid. And then also being that mature adult that, to get me to the next level is always trying to find the balance of and everything. So that's been the hardest part and also been the best part as well at the same time. So.
Esports, again, big business, but there's two sides of it. There are the people who say, they just want esports, they just want gaming and the fun of it,
right?
And leave them alone and don't bother them. And then there's the other side that's saying, hey, this is an opportunity. It's like a gold rush, and people are running in with sponsorships and advertisement to tap into it. How do you really merge those two worlds, and is it necessary to merge it, to bring them together?
Right. So that's also another great question, because I think esports in itself is a niche market. No matter if it's a huge niche or a small niche, I think, it's okay to have two different entities. I don't think, there's some people who love playing basketball, but that can't stand watching basketball. And that goes for both. And I feel like the NBA, the NFL, the MLS have all realized, hey, we're not going to spoon feed and force these people into our stadiums. We're just going to let it grow organically. And if they like it, they like it. They don't. But the people who do like it, we're really going to tailor and we're really going to market to those people, because those are the ones. What I learned in school is butts and seats is the most important thing. Getting people to the games, and that's something that esports has a very unique opportunity. The Overwatch League, pre-COVID had a fantastic opportunity for their home stands, their home matches, and it's something that I feel like if COVID, in a perfect world, COVID didn't exist, etc., it was something that could have been built upon and had huge amounts of success. I'm ready for, once everything starts settling down, not necessarily going back to normal, but finding, hey, we've been in here in this bubble for X amount of months. Now it's time to take it to the next level. And that's something that I think esports has been able to utilize because of its advantage of it can be online and it can be offline. So it just depends on who has the most influence and who can. I feel like these types of conversations from the ground up is really what moves the markets and really moves the business forward and left or right, back and forth. So I think more organic growth is going to be needed moving forward.
A lot of sponsors, a lot of advertisers, people in the business world look at esports and they just see it as in terms of sponsorship or advertisement. Okay, well, this is a good place that we can reach all of those young people, all of the teens.
Right.
But is that a mistake for companies to look at it that way and just think this is a place where all the teenagers hang out and we can advertise to them?
Right. I don't think it's I feel like when you isolate a market that thoroughly enjoys, because at the end of the day, these kids are the ones say, hey mom, hey dad, buy me this, and they're the ones that are putting that credit card into the transaction, and that this is how people are making their money. I feel like esports is a market that it hits from ages of 13 all the way to I think about 32, 33 years old. So I think every I think every marketing campaign, every business campaign, every situation, every scenario that's out there, I think needs to be looked at in a different, brand new, complete lens. I feel like when you try to put the one size fits all, that's how many game companies, not even just necessarily on the esports side of things, but just many companies or many gaming companies in general, they make that mistake of, oh, these 13-year-olds like it, so these 33-year-olds might like it, or these 28-year-olds females might like it, but my 20-year-old males don't really respond the same. So it's always trying to figure out, every scenario, every demographic needs to be looked at in a different lens. And, having people, such as myself with my experiences, be able to see those things and see those advantages of having that diverse, demographic that's under the umbrella of esports, and really trying to see the difference between each and segment each market and consumer exclusively.
All right. Well, let me ask you the hard question now. We look at esports, and again, we don't see a lot of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
How do you change that, or how can esports itself change that? We've looked at hockey for years,
Right?
And outside of a Saban business,
Yep.
we don't see a flood of brothers running around skating around on the ice.
You're right.
That's been going on for years. So,
yep.
How do we make sure that esports, doesn't go that route, that they kind of are more diverse? How do we make that happen?
Yeah. So I think that question is awesome, because I'm so passionate about it, because I have so many ideas that we can do. So number one, because bringing up the hockey example, the reason why we don't see Black athletes or Latino athletes is because of the expenses that go, buying your hockey stick, buying your skates, finding teams that are in minority communities, because a lot of these teams are not in minority communities. They're in, richer neighborhoods, because they're that's the demographic that can afford it. So trying to really, from the ground or from the top to the bottom, having community outreach programs, such as, let's talk about when it comes to esports. We need to have these community centers. I know there's some in Denver, sponsored by Nerd Street Gamers. It's called Local Host Denver. And I think what companies like that need to do is that make their facilities affordable, make them accessible, and make them safe for kids of poorer communities, of minority descent, to have this accessibility into these facilities, and get them more coaching, more I think coaching is a huge part of it, that not only just coaching, but just leaders in the industry in general. Another thing is just having these types of conversations. When you hear someone online and you're playing with your friend and they're receiving racist remarks or misogynistic remarks, call that person out right when it is. Because I know from my experiences, when I call it out from the source, and you have enough people, that person feels like the minority, and they shut up for a lot of the time. Obviously you're going to have your keyboard warriors, but at the same time, when you have people that are Caucasian, that are able to speak out and help the minority agenda to equalize everything, I think those two things are what's really going to drive esports moving forward. And the stigma of, oh, it's only a white sport, or only, white people can play it. But I think, based off my experiences as a player and in the business, I've met Black, Asian, white, Hispanic women, and it's something that needs to be talked about more to bring even more diversity into the industry. So,
yeah, it would seem to lend itself, because it's a global thing.
Absolutely.
It would seem to just really lend itself to diversity.
Absolutely.
If the right course is taken.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, you are moving down that chain now, and trying to accomplish some of those things, check off some of those boxes that you have set for yourself and goals. What
Yes,
are some
sir.
of the goals that you see yourself attaining in the near future?
Yeah. So I'm going to be starting my master's in business administration. Actually, at the end of this month is when I start my first semester at Loyola Marymount University in LA. I was thinking, what is the mecca of esports, and that's Los Angeles, California. So I said, you know what? Let me force myself. Let me be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and let me put myself in this situation of being in a brand new state by myself, brand new city, a big city, a diverse city, and really get my master's, and really try to keep building those building blocks for my esports career. Hopefully, also in the next within the next couple months, couple years, really want to be in a top esports organization, really utilizing the skills that I've obtained to really push the agenda for minority gamers, for women, and really push the fashion in esports. Those two things would be my my big push if I was so lucky to work at a big organization.
All right. Well, we are talking to Lorenzo Rodriguez, and you are viewing and listening to Play to Win. I, again, am your host, Charles Gentry, aka The Oracle. And we have been having a great conversation about esports and all the diverse facets of it. In kind of summing it all up, as you seek to put your flag down there, Lorenzo, in that big thing called esports, and kind of stake out your own claim in it. Do you see that globally, esports is getting to the place where it is just as a fixture in society as traditional sports? Or do you think it can really just survive and be on its own as something separate? Does it need to become another NFL or NBA or MLB, or can it be kind of its own beast over there and not have to go that route?
Right. So what I found really interesting in my studies in school was that a lot of people who thoroughly enjoy esports also are sports fans. They watch traditional sports and vice versa. So I don't think the NFL needs to be having attack ads or feel threatened, or the NBA needs to feel threatened necessarily by these esports as an industry. I feel like both can work together. You have I feel like the NBA is doing a fantastic job bridging the gap between sports and esports, of having the 2K league, and the MLS is doing the eMLS. I don't think the two need to clash together. I feel like they need to work together, and they both are able to market one another to build the other. One of the things when I was working with ProSoc Esports was with the traditional soccer agency. I brought a lot of traditional sport elements, like a college showcase, signing different teams and players, and I was able to bring traditional sports into the esports realm, and they worked flawlessly together. And I think that that's something that these leagues, both on the esports side of things and the traditional sports side of things, I don't think they need to clash. I think they need to work more together and really recognize the other and have different partnerships. That just helps with sponsorships. That helps, sponsorships can, when they're making these deals, they can say, hey, look, we not only want to do your traditional sports, but we also want to have a deal with your esports industry. And that's something that I think that both industries, both traditional, both esports, can do to build forward together.
All right. Lastly, let me throw this one out here. If you were in the boardroom right now and you're making the ultimate pitch to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, what do you say to him about, getting into sponsorship or, advertising in esports? why should he go that route?
Right. I think it goes beyond just bringing a new demographic to you, to your company. When you take a leap of faith, and not necessarily a leap of faith because it's, esports is already established in so many ways and it continues to break barriers. I feel like as a CEO, as a Fortune 500 company, you show the public, hey, I can not only just do one thing, I can also diversify and meet the I guess the wants and needs and really adapt to the markets that are showing. If my product can work fantastically, whether me as a CEO believe in esports or not, but I can set my pride aside and I can actively seek it because I know it'll genuinely help both the market and my consumers, then it's a win-win for both industries. And that's something that a lot of Fortune 500 companies, a lot of just companies, small, big, large, can all really learn from in esports, is that the diversity and how much innovation that it can bring. And by working together, both industries can really, I feel like a lot of the technologies that you have in esports can really be translated, to the traditional industries that are out there, whether it's food, whether it's tech, whether it's, apparel, sports. So the list can go on and on.
Okay. All right. Fantastic, man. I've enjoyed having you here on Play to Win.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. And, to show my thanks, let me give you 3 names that you need to be able to hook up with there in Los Angeles, man, while you're there.
Awesome.
1, okay, when this whole thing lifts, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles.
All right.
Okay.
I like that.
2, Ramona's.
Okay.
3, Los Cholos.
I'm writing all this down. That's cool.
Hey, if you hit those 3, bruh, you never have to worry about eating again.
I like that.
Those are the hookups, guarantee you.
Okay, awesome.
And if you take your crew there, man, everybody's gonna be satisfied, believe me.
Hey, I like that a lot. All
right. Well, hey, I appreciate having you on, Lorenzo.
Likewise.
So great luck in all that you're doing. And I'll definitely, keep track of you, man. We'll keep track and,
absolutely.
We'll talk some more.
Absolutely. Charles, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And to your viewers, thank you guys for listening. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Excellent. Mr. DJ Yams, take us to the bridge.
Traffic has never been this hot. Sit back and trip. This is the Traffic Jams with Yams.
This is power.
Yams G The DJ. Power. Yams G The DJ.